So, I want to just go through a few points, just to flag them, and then we can discuss. The important thing to understand about these small farmers and rural communities is that there are not many studies showing the role of women, but those studies that are available show that women are actually the custodians of seed. And this is true in Africa, and it's true in other parts of the world. They are custodians of the seed and the knowledge around seed, because women are responsible for the household food, and they are responsible for the growing of food. Men have a complementary role, as we know, growing some crops and livestock, but women are really at the heart of the food system. And the seed is at the heart of the food system. And the knowledge around seed is what women have. And so women are really the custodians of seed and food and medicine, of what we call biodiversity, domestic biodiversity. Now this detailed knowledge is very, very complex. Women select the seed, they store the seed, they then choose which seed to grow each season. They're the ones who actually have been diversifying our food base. Now, a very, very important international discussion happened in 1996 in the Food and Agriculture Organization, when globally it was realized that the genetic base of the food system has been radically eroded by the introduction of industrial agriculture into the world. And so at the Food and Agricultural Organization, one of the founding documents looking at the dangerous erosion of the diversity of our food base recognized that it is the small farmers around the world that have actually established the rich basis of our food system that now the industrial system is building on. And it's the women who have been at the heart of our food system. So it's women's very, very specific, detailed knowledge of how you select seeds, how you sow them, when you plant them, under what conditions. That is what has actually established over centuries the incredibly rich basis of our foods, of our different cultural foods that grow in different ecosystems. And this was acknowledged in both the Food and Agricultural Organization in 1996 and subsequently in the Convention on Biodiversity. So that's another really important fact. The industrial food system relies on the work that women have done over centuries evolving these complex food systems.
In terms of ownership and distribution of land, we still have a massively unequal distribution of land. South Africa is the country where the least number of people are actually employed or engaged in agriculture. When I'm in Zimbabwe, I think that about 90% of people, even if they're not farmers, are producing something or are involved in the agricultural economy in one way or another. Whether they're driving taxis, whether they're working in offices, wherever they are. And in South Africa, it's almost the reverse. The people who are part of the agricultural economy, it's almost the equivalent, it's almost the same as Europe in terms of employment statistics. So I think that as people from other parts of Africa, and women in other parts of Africa, we must be in solidarity with our comrades here in South Africa in terms of the land struggles that they're facing. If you see what happened in Marikana, what happened in Cape Town around the farm worker strikes, these are directly related to the earlier land dispossessions. So anything that can come onto AWDF's agenda in respect to redressing what remains an extreme injustice on the continent, I think we should include as part of our economic empowerment. So, economy. Okay, what's an economy? I think all of us understand whenever we're hearing about the economy, we're being told that the economy is something called GDP, right? Gross domestic product. Okay. And your GDP is more or less, sorry. Yeah? Oh, the green is not clear. Can you all see from the back? Yeah? Okay. So your economy is your gross domestic product, which is really the sum total of what is bought and what is sold, okay? Which we normally divide into goods and services. Okay. Services of all kinds, goods of all kinds. These goods and services that are being bought and sold may be raw materials, okay? That's what's called the primary sector. Others with better economic qualifications can assist. Manufacturing, okay? That's industry. The thing that we are looking for all of us to beneficiate and manufacture and add value. And the tertiary sector, which is services. That includes your hairdresser, who does your dreadlocks on the weekend, the taxi driver who takes you from place to place, the people who are architects and designing our airports, the consultants, and people like me who are sort of talking and doing what we do. Or rethinking institutions for economic empowerment, right? Maybe that's where I'm kind of confused. We have what we call the state, okay? We call it there's a market where we are busy being economic actors, buying and selling. State, we're telling everybody what to do. We have citizens. And I think increasingly because of climate change, we actually have to think of the environment as an institution in and of itself as well. And how we rethink these institutions is as we're talking, and I think that's the interface issue, as we're talking about economic empowerment, self-determination, the question then becomes, how do we manage this? What's the role of the state? What's the role of the market? What's the role of citizens? And how do we link in the environment with all of those things?
What strikes me in these two presentations is that issues of class continue to surface. Location, education. Whereas when we talk about indigenous people and knowledge, even us, where we work, to what extent are we working with indigenous knowledge, and to what extent are we deep where some of the knowledge is embedded? So we can do all these things, but I think we cannot forget this. We cannot forget rotation. We cannot forget education. And what it is to do. And then, of course, I think both presentations are bringing up issues of patriarchy. And once we talk about patriarchy, we're also trying to understand feminism. Where does our feminism come in? But for AWDF, I think this discussion really is important in terms of where we frame our discussion, or where we want to locate ourselves as, as AWDF. Are we going to just change this, work towards changing this, but without necessarily understanding this? We talk a lot about women getting involved in politics, but what kind of politics are they transforming? What does transformation mean? Can the feminist framework give us tools for transformation? And to what extent? Then we bring feminism into our discussion. Because Nancy, if this is a patriarchal economy, just as much as, you said as well, if there is patriarchy, there is feminism. So what does feminism enable us to do? To what extent is a feminist framework enabling us to transform our countries, our economy, and our role is empowerment, and our role, institutions and legal frameworks.
Thank you firstly for the opportunity to share some of the work that our organization is involved in and where we located our work and from which analysis we pursue the work with communities and movements. So I work for the Surplus People Project, and our point of departure is food sovereignty, and I think both speakers touched on the issue of control and choice and the community's choice in determining. So Nancy's transformative economics and the issue of empowerment as self-determination. So food sovereignty will locate within the broader concept of agrarian transformation, so land, water, and seed sovereignty is critical. And within this framework of food sovereignty, we place some emphasis on agroecology, and I'm sure that many of you work with communities and movements that advocate for agroecology as an alternative to the dominant agricultural model. And issues of seed become critical within that. So as an organization, we have 3 strands of work. We look at agrarian transformation, we're looking at building movements, and we're looking at agroecology as an alternative. So these are the 3 ambits of our work. Just to talk a bit about our approach, we see food sovereignty as a starting point, as an alternative vision for a changing society, the rights of communities to determine what and how and who produces. We understand it to be a political right of communities, farmers, women, farm workers, to control the food and agricultural policies and public goods, the local food systems, which comprise of seed, water, and land. And so our analysis is that the food, economic, and energy crises are consequences of a neoliberal production model, an economic model that advocates for profit, supports liberalization, free trade, open markets, etc. And that experience that you have, and we see it every day, and Africa is a good example of how where it manifests itself fundamentally.
Which area should we focus on? Because what I'm hearing now is how we are going to do that. And it's not really looking at what, yes.
See, local communities which are resilient. So not just building local communities, but resilience was a key word. And in trying to unpack resilience and local communities, we found that in the next 3 to 5 years, but in 5 years, we're really looking at local power and control of resources, of processes, of destiny, of the story. And there are a number of things that need to be done in order to achieve this. You need mapping. You need to help the community, facilitate community mapping, and work with the community in mapping their past, their present, their future, not just in terms of their story, but their resources, their skills, their abilities, and endowments. And you need to develop skills. You need to reskill people because people have skills that have now been called irrelevant. You need to bring back relevance to skills that people have and develop new skills that enable them to operate. You also need legal and policy literacy. They need to know what is allowed, what is not allowed, what are constraints, and also be able to develop their own agendas for advocacy and law changes.
So part of the reason why we established the movement was because our independence were not recognized. And some of us were constantly being evicted from their marital homes after their spouses had passed. And when we established the RWM, the government was in a process of implementing the land reform program. And the voice of the women was not there. It was only men who were claiming the land, who were submitting their applications to government on behalf of the women. And so we needed to quickly organize ourselves.
Yeah, I'm Happy Gloria, a founder of community-based organization known as Busia Community-Based Services. We founded it in 1999. I know the question crossing your minds is why? My background is nursing, and I'm a medical practitioner running a private clinic. So at that time, HIV/AIDS was very new. Especially we were getting clients coming home, being brought home, terminally ill. So when they would come home, their families, and these clients mainly who are coming from towns back home, terminally ill, of course, were the male spouses. So the female spouses would be very worried. One, they would think it's witchcraft. After trying, whatever they would try at home and it fails, they would come to the private clinic as a last resort. Then I realized that actually, before these male spouse or this client demises, they would have spent a lot of family resources. So as they die, they are leaving their families in very pathetic situations and sometimes infected. And then after that, there was a lot of aftermath because either their female spouses were condemned, was discriminated. Some of them were even chased away from their homes, marital homes. Their children were also discriminated. So you find that as a result, we had this kind of people who are just destitute. And, we also have, there's a lot of similarity with what Susan has said, but then you'll find that after that, we have what we call cultural and traditional practices. When somebody dies, there are a lot of traditional practices that have to be undertaken.